Accorda, son Costaquina Kilmichael agus Crossabarrig, Curim Falta Riv Gacana on so enough. Agus Curim Falta Specialta Riv Arcaintor, Don Lanov, Declan Carne, or Biel Ferriste. Tommy don so con Smuinev agus an Orahort don Trur Lekra for Bas not so. Mihal Macarig, Seamus o Sulvan, agus Padraig o Deisig. Gunyan dia trocra an Amca, agus na Lekra Galera for Bas son Search and a Hern. Before going any further, I would make a few commercial announcements, I suppose. We have our usual collection boxes, and I hope you will be generous to those boxes. And tickets for the dinner will be on sale here on my left and at the hotel door in Inchigila. And the Kilmichael book, The Wild Heather Glen, and other books of similar interest are on sale here on my left as well. When we gather here at Kilmichael, our thoughts naturally turn to the three that were killed here and all those comrades of those men who died in the cause of Irish freedom. But today I will ask you also to remember two members of our committee who died recently, Sean Fitzgerald and Michael Joe Crowley. Two men with a great national spirit, and I suppose that's no surprise to us, seeing that they came from the Kilbrittain Balnadee countryside, an area that produced more than its share of men for the IRA struggle in the 1919-20 period. And it's no surprise then that those two men were neighbours and great friends, and that they had a great interest in this committee, and they were two loyal, upright members and always prepared to take on any task that was necessary. Godiana dia trocra an Bertaco. And maybe we would have a minute's silence. Now I will ask John Joe Lyons to lay a reed. Guruf made ma good. Inish Irim Kahalo Madin, Denorden Kronvera Aberling.
St. Vixen spread neven and Keir Rowan glorify Asheri Christ. And I had a thought now going to for ten go down the rear going into the Holland down mar neither on now. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Share the hour at around the grass at Auntie and the left, Spanish water and hours, Spanish order and ears. Lord of the Nahas and Bacchus and Spridnell. Darren Tree Shervaha or some and Dr. Taluta eg Crohoran Sean McArdle agus Miharo Crowley we'd say three Hail Marys. Shervaha were a Talan de Grasta, Tanti and Alat, a spanner who they were now, and this is Banner to the Renisa. Shervaha were a Talan de Grasta, Tanti and Alat. Spanner who the Vinava, Spanner Thorod Venias. Share the Vahavat around the grass that Auntie and the letter Spanner who the Vinava, Spanner Thorod Venias. Lord of the Nahas and Box and Spridnell. May Mary, the Mother of Jesus, offer consolation to the both of their families.
Gurv Maha Gudakal. Now I will ask the pipers to play a lament. At this stage, I should have it done already, to say a special welcome to last year's speaker, Therese Ferris, from Kerry, as you know, and I think we also have with us Nellie O'Donovan from Dunmanway, who is the last remaining link with the period we are commemorating now. She is the widow of Pat O'Donovan, who fought here at Kilmichael. So I think we have Nellie with us, and we have a special welcome for her also. We could hardly call ourselves a republic if we didn't accommodate all shades of opinion. But for the past few weeks, we seem to have gone overboard in our commemoration of what I call Irish-born British soldiers who fought in World War I. The media has been saturated with commentators who have their own version of history, and we are sick of hearing the same old line: they died for the freedom of small nations. They even have the gall to tell us that these Irish-born British soldiers gave their lives for our freedom. But we know that our freedom was won by the boys of Kilmichael and Crossbarry and several other ambush sites all over the country, and not on the battlefields of Europe in World War I. Apart from Peter Monaghan, who was killed at Crossbarry, General Tom Barry, and Captain McCarthy, who made the bomb for Rosscarbery Barracks, I can't bring to mind, except I can think of a few others, but no notable characters in that period who were British soldiers originally. So that's pure bunkum. I sometimes wonder, do these writers know anything about history? Do they know that just 2% of these Irish were prepared to accept freedom and join a brigade organised by Roger Casement to fight for Irish freedom? And do they know that at Roger Casement's trial, some of these fellas came up with evidence to try and convict and eventually execute Roger Casement? I believe that these writers are rewriting history to suit their own thoughts and their own pro-British mentality. And I also wonder, is it in keeping with our national spirit, while there are British soldiers still on Irish soil, that the Lord Mayor of Cork last year saw fit to wear a poppy to a commemoration ceremony and subsequently give the freedom of the city to John Major, who did little or nothing for the cause of Irish freedom or justice or peace, and whose party brutalised the people of this country for generations, I could say, and would still do so, I'm sure, if they had the opportunity. The present Lord Mayor seems to be following on the same lines. He goes to the trouble of organising a commemoration for these soldiers and getting a concert going in the City Hall, which would not exist at all if these fellas had their way. Does he remember that the comrades of these people who he is commemorating burned that same City Hall in 1920? We pride ourselves in being called the rebel county, but if present trends continue, I think that Cork City will soon be known as the Imperial City. For the past half year, the political scene in the 6 counties appears to us down here to be at a complete standstill, with little or no input from the Irish or British governments, who we thought were supposed to oversee the situation. But thankfully the Assembly has met again, and the prospects look brighter. And we look to our speaker, Declan Carney, to give us a clearer picture of what's happening and an up-to-date information on what's happening. Declan is from Belfast and a member of the Ard Comhairle of Sinn Féin. And some of you may remember his late father, Oliver, who spoke at Crossbarry a number of years back. And we are looking forward to the same high standard and eloquence today from Declan. So, without further ado, I give you Declan Carney from Belfast.
Maigad as na deaf focal sinne a chun agus tasúlagam go man an ahan rud a dheanú agus a lug tú amach os mo chóirse. A bhaintear Corcaigh, a chairde, a chomradíthe, a ghaol agus clunne an óglaí Kilmhaigh. Tá sé de phrivilege dúsa bhéhan seo chun óráid Kilmhaigh a thuairt inniu. Agus téan an honor sin a bhaim ormsa go mórmhór. Agus bhhailm a ghuaithe a ggóil leis an coste cemneheim a socht an corú a thuirtú. Cai me rá nuair a corú an corú thugam. Ní roma arid as bommate ag smaoinú faoi. So an neatha me arás ad le Sean Kelleher chun a rá leis go mé hin brasásta, Harvey brasásta, hacht an seo aniu. So gur a míle maigah as an corú le hacht an seo aniu. Tá sé de honor dúsa agus tá sé de honor de Sinn Féin go bhfuil me an seo aniu ag caint ar cean an bhartí sogin. It was about 1976 and I had just turned 11, giving you away my age now. And my mummy and daddy had come back from the All-Ireland final in Dublin and they brought me back a present. And the present was Tom Barry's Grilla Days in Ireland. And I read the book voraciously in the space of a winna days, and I've read it many times since. That and many, many other books, I might add, about this part of Ireland and the struggle for freedom in Cork and West Cork particularly. And I suppose it began a love affair by remote between me and West Cork, and I developed an intense interest in the Kilmichael ambush, Crossbarry, and many, many other places of historic note throughout this county, where Irish men and women went toe to toe with the forces of occupation and struck out to achieve freedom for our country during the course of the Tan War. So I have to say, this is a real privilege for me to take the opportunity on behalf of Sinn Féin to speak here today on behalf of the Republican leadership. It's a personal honour for me, and I'm delighted to be here with you all today. In some ways, there's a sense of the fulfilment of a childhood ambition, because I've never been this length of West Cork before. Cork many times, but I was never at Crossbarry until yesterday, and this is my first time to visit Kilmichael here today, and it's a pleasure for me to do so. So thanks for the invitation. And it should be said that for myself, as a young Republican in the 6 counties from County Antrim, as I grew up during the 70s and the 80s and into the 90s, Kilmichael and the experience of Kilmichael and the tradition of this part of Ireland was formative on my political consciousness and that of generations of young Irish men and women, not just in the 6 counties but across the length and breadth of this Ireland, as we made life-changing decisions to become involved in the Republican struggle, to carry on the work that began here on this day 88 years ago, when Tom Barry and the West Cork Flying Column took on the Auxies as they left Macroom and fought them to a standstill at this site. And I want to acknowledge the role of the Commemoration Committee, because while Kilmichael and the history of Kilmichael had a formative experience on my and many other young people's political consciousness, the fact remains that it has been the work of the Commemoration Committee that has ensured that the history and the heritage of this part of Ireland has been kept alive And it's a pleasure, it must be a tribute to the work of this committee that so many young people are here in this crowd here today, from wee tots through to young teens and many young men in their early 20s and women in their early 20s and their early 30s. And that's the biggest tribute that can be extended to this commemoration committee, whose work has been unstinting and deserves a round of applause from each and every single one of us. Friends and comrades, it was today 88 years ago, exactly, that 36 volunteers of the West Cork Brigade engaged British forces on this very site. And in its time, the audacity of that battle was inspirational. And it helped to change the conduct of the guerrilla war here in West Cork, and ultimately, it changed the overall direction of the Tan War nationally. And despite the passage of time, the story of Kilmichael, right up till today, remains just as inspirational. And each and every one of us do well to think about that. Because 88 years ago wasn't the day of mobile phones, wasn't the day of modern communications. Far less was it the day where you could jump on a motor and expect to move from one point of the country to the next. It was a day when people walked, it was a time when people walked, when communication was hard, when times were hard, and people had very little to put on the plate. So Ireland was a different place 88 years ago, and that meant that the struggle for freedom and the conduct of war was an entirely different battlefield in that day and age. And the 36 volunteers who comprised that column, which fought at this site, and we should remember this, weren't professional soldiers. Few of them had any real experience of guerrilla warfare. They were assembled as a unit for the first time. For the first time those 36 men came together was a week ago yesterday, beyond in Clogher above Dunmanway, for military training. And on Saturday the 27th, which would have been yesterday, last night, 88 years ago, they broke camp from Inniskeen at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And they marched the 19 miles to this place here in Kilmichael. And it was a bitter night. If you thought last night was cold, it was probably just as cold then. But those men endured driving rain, bitter cold conditions in the harshest of the weather of West Cork. And they endured that driving rain, and they came the 19 miles on foot to this place. And each volunteer, visualise this, each of those 36 volunteers assumed a firing position around this rugged hillside. Each of them assumed a firing position, and they lay in that position from about 8:15 in the morning until 4 o'clock that afternoon, amidst biting cold, clothes soaked to the skin, and they couldn't move. And 3 volunteers were killed that day. Michael McCarthy, who came here a week ago, 88 years ago, with Tom Barry to work out the detail of the operation. Jim O'Sullivan, and the youngest man in the column that day of 16 years of age, young Pat Deasy. So the Kilmichael ambush has become an enduring part of Republican history. And every year and since, this commemoration pays homage and tribute to the courage, the determination and the sacrifice of all of those volunteers of the West Cork Flying Column, and its commitment, its stinting commitment to achieve a free and united Ireland. Friends, Kilmichael was a defining point, defining action in the course of the Tan War. And it was followed 4 months later by an equally seminal ambush at Crossbarry. And by 1921, West Cork had become a no-go area for British forces in this part of Ireland. And these and many other engagements in this county left the British occupation forces faced with a fierce resistance to their attempts to quell the desire for Irish freedom. And it's in that celebration of freedom that a diverse spectrum of Republicans' opinion unites here every year to honour the men of Kilmichael and stand in solidarity with their families. And it's right that this is so. We from Sinn Féin, those from Fianna Fáil, other Republicans and other independents, it is right that we come together, and Sinn Féin commends and welcomes that kind of unity. The events of this day 88 years ago and their wider role in our freedom struggle also went on to inspire later generations of young men and women to take up arms against Britain's illegal occupation of our country. And just as in the Tan War, 80-odd years ago, young Cork men have also paid the ultimate sacrifice. And in more recent times, Tony Ahern and Dermot Crowley from Cork City were killed in the 1970s in Fermanagh and in Tyrone. And Diarmuid O'Deil, shot dead in London in the 1990s, is buried here in nearby Timoleague Cemetery. And those young men, like Jim O'Sullivan, Michael McCarthy, and young Pat Deasy, like the 1981 hunger strikers, and thousands of others who have joined the resistance against British rule in our country over recent decades, were each and every one of them motivated by the timeless historic aim for Irish freedom and independence. Acharja, the struggle in our country in pursuit of outstanding national and democratic objectives has passed through many phases since 1920. Partition and the denial of national independence were wrong then. And today, friends, partition and the continued denial of national independence are still wrong in 2008. It's a fact that the Tan War couldn't have been sustained without the active backing of the Irish people. And the modern armed campaign of the IRA would not have been prosecuted for nearly 4 decades without popular support across Ireland. But there comes a time in political struggle when the need for war and armed actions should give way to negotiations, to dialogue, to outreach, and the exploration of new strategies. And today, Ireland has reached that point. Ireland is a different place today. It's a place of new hope, and it's a place with the promise of permanent peace. And that fact necessitates that all of us consider and reflect and investigate new political strategies and tactics. 3 years ago in July 2005, Óglaigh na hÉireann declared an end to its armed campaign. And it set out the challenge for advancing national democracy and independence in modern Ireland. That was a watershed and a visionary decision. And it was shaped by the same selfless courage of modern-day Óglaigh from this county and across Ireland as motivated the volunteers of the West Cork Flying Column during the Tan War. And I look out into this crowd, and just as the men who fought here at Kilmichael and in the West Cork Brigade were not strangers to the community of West Cork in 1918, 1919, 1920 and 21, I look into this crowd and I see volunteers of this generation who took part in the making of that decision. And those Óglaigh who are present in this crowd here today, they're your brothers, they're your sisters, they're your sons. You employ them, they employ you. They are people of this community. They're not strangers to you. They are part of this community of West Cork, and they have made a seminal and a key contribution to the development of the peace process. Yes, Ireland, friends, has changed. And it was armed struggle that created the conditions for negotiations. And then those hard-fought negotiations on equality and human rights, on the All-Ireland agenda, and then the Good Friday Agreement and the St Andrews Agreement, all of which have the basis for developing the potential for achieving national unity and independence. All of that, all of those hard-fought negotiations have changed utterly the political landscape of modern Ireland. And more recently, a new negotiation has secured the transfer of policing and justice powers away from Westminster. And sovereignty for those powers now will be democratically located within the Northern Executive. And as for unionism in the North, well, today, folks, unionism can only exercise power in Ireland. Can only exercise power in Ireland for the first time in 80 years if unionism is prepared to share power on an equal partnership basis with nationalists and Republicans. And that's the way that it should be, and that's the way that it will stay. And now, for Republicans like ourselves, it is for us, within and outside the political institutions, to act as persuaders for Irish unity. But none of that should be misunderstood. This country of ours, and ours, and those of Sean this morning in the cemetery, our country remains politically divided. But Irish freedom remains as noble an aim and as much a political imperative to be achieved today as it was 88 years ago at this site here in Kilmichael. Today, friends, there's unfinished business for all Irish nationalists and all Irish Republicans. But the United Ireland project today has to compete with new international and democratic circumstances. So, when we talk of a United Ireland in our generations today, we need to bring a 21st century momentum to the achievement of that United Ireland. We need a renewed determination to achieve national freedom in the lifetime of these generations. And this will only happen when we set about, each and every one of us, maximising popular support and uniting the greater number of Irish citizens in support of Irish national and democratic objectives. And it is in that spirit, friends, that Sinn Féin is calling for the greatest cross-section of Republican, nationalist, democratic and progressive opinion on this island to join in a national conversation on how those goals can be achieved today. We are appealing to all nationally minded political parties, organisations and groups to set aside sectional interests to organise a new patriotic unity and a patriotic consensus for the modern age to bring about national democracy, Irish independence and Irish freedom. And as a contribution to that work, we invite each one of you to join with us in our celebration of the 90th anniversary of An Céad Dal in the Mansion House on the 21st of January this year coming 2009. Acharja, in recent times, establishment politicians in this state have used a call to patriotic duty. I stand corrected. They have they've taken the chance and used the opportunity to make a call to patriotic duty, to conceal and distort economic cutbacks and decisions which are the very antithesis of decent standards of living, justice and equality in this part of Ireland. And I say that those establishment parties, those establishment politicians have forfeited the right to counsel on what democratic and patriotic duty should be, and they've done that because they traded patriotic duty for cut-and-blow, hair-dry politics in the last course of years. Who in their right mind can say, that patriotic duty equates with any notion that young girls should be refused the right to cancer vaccines, denying children decent education conditions, attempting to take pension rights from our elderly, preventing our young people from the right to buy and to own a house, or running down the livelihoods of small dairy and sheep farmers from this part of Ireland and up the west coast, the Midlands and down the east coast, is right or fair. I say to you folks, it's not right, it's not fair, it's wrong. The arrogance of recent years of fiscal and economic mismanagement in the 26 counties has unfortunately brought chickens home to roost. And this government's solution has been to elevate Gumbean interests over the interests of ordinary people. Well, the IRA volunteers who marched to do battle at this place 88 years ago did so as men of no property. They were not motivated by personal gain. They were motivated by higher principles of a free and a better Ireland. And they would have no hesitation in declaring that any solution to present-day economic mismanagement and gross mismanagement of our fiscal affairs, which fails to put ordinary town and country people like us first, is no solution. Make no mistake about this. What is offered by establishment politicians in Dublin today is no solution in the modern Ireland. Yes, Ireland needs a new standard of patriotism, but not one that's beholden to gombeen men, to bankers, or to profiteers. The new standards of patriotism lay as an example to us and is set out by the men who stood and lay in these fields and drumlins around Kilmichael 88 years ago. And that standard of patriotism embodied by those volunteers doesn't need to be reinvented today. Its foundation stone was the democratic programme of Kincaid Dáil. And it told us the nation's sovereignty extends not only to all men and women, but to all its material possessions, the nation's soil, and all its material resources, all the wealth, and all the wealth-producing processes within the nation. And its relevance for us today, my friends, must be to reassert the indivisibility of economic justice, equality, fair play, prosperity for every citizen, north and south, with the unchallengeable right to national independence and freedom. The volunteers who fought here at Kilmichael committed themselves fearlessly to a bold military operation. They set out to change the course of the war in this county, and ultimately they changed the entire direction of the Tan War. Today we are closer than ever before to achieving Irish independence. But now we face the most challenging and difficult phase of the long road to freedom. Be sure of this. The key to successfully achieving Irish independence today now rests squarely in this state. The front line of the independence struggle is no longer in the 6 counties. The political front line for Irish independence in 2008 has expanded to Cork. It's in the south. It's throughout all of Munster, Connaught and Leinster. If our generations mirror the commitment of the Kilmichael volunteers, we can achieve the dream of Irish freedom. And we can change. Ordinary people like us can change the direction of Irish politics. But only if we commit to making bold moves also, which are going to make the political and the strategic difference. And we'll do that if each of us go from here today from Kilmichael to promote a new and authentic patriotism which puts national and democratic and economic rights of Irish citizens first. A patriotism, friends, which is true to the Shanachal, Gurf we Scath and Fubble, Awaris Nadini. We can do this if each of us leave Kilmichael today to popularise the timeless and principles and values of the democratic programme in the political life of this state. We can do it if we leave Kilmichael today and go away to become active persuaders for Irish unity in every local community and county throughout the 32 counties of Ireland. And we will do it, and we will achieve it if we leave Kilmichael today and leave to build popular unity and support to advance the achievement of Irish independence. Fellow Irish people, this is a time to reimagine what is in fact possible in Irish society today. It's a time to build alliances for Irish unity. It's a time to bring forward a coherent Republican alternative in this state. And it is a time to revive a sense of mission and a sense of vision in Irish politics. On the occasion of this historic anniversary, let each one of us, every man and woman and child amongst you, reach deep inside and connect with what Bobby Sands described for us as the inner thing that says, I'm right. Every volunteer, every one of the 36 volunteers who stood up and fought for Ireland in these hills and drumlins and the roadway of Kilmichael was right. And latter-day generations of Óglaigh na hÉireann who fought for the freedom of Ireland were also right. And we are proud to call each and every one of them freedom fighters. But today, Acardja, the cause of the Republic no longer requires fighters. But it does need a united constituency of freedom builders and patriots the length and breadth of Ireland, persuading and campaigning for Irish unity and Irish independence. And in 2008, that cause is no less noble and no less urgent. From Kilmichael today, friends, as I finish, from Kilmichael today, let the rebel county once more take the lead and advance towards with the unbroken quest for Irish unity. Arailin Lekela, agus Indy ha drawn a bublakta, Berigi Bua, Chucky Arla.
Thanks very much, Declan, for a very well thought out and well researched speech here today. And a mere thank you from me doesn't do justice to that, and I will ask our Secretary Sean Kelleher to say a few quick words as the day is getting very cold in thanks to Declan.
Time be quickly Kahirlik. Kunjana Armsa Arsan and Koshakeen Khan, Bekas Gwal the Declan Asan Orad Untuk Farlahan Yenshian Sean Yov. It's a great honour for me, Carter Gael, to thank Declan Carney for the most illuminating and inspiring oration that he has given here today, delivered with sincerity and conviction. A marvellous speech. And I think you'll agree with me that we certainly made no mistake in inviting the son of Oliver Carney, who spoke at Trustbarry in 1994, to deliver this oration here today. Oliver was a marvellous speaker in 1994, accompanied by his wife, Declan's mother, Bridget. Tashid Imaha, Ashlina Feeling Inish, Benoptail and Anmaka. What can I say, Carter Gael, after that? It's very hard. I'm not going to dream of trying to go back over what Declan has said, but he has given an inspiring address here today. One of the most inspiring addresses that I've had for quite a long time. And he has given us food for thought. We can be thinking about what he has said for quite a long time to come. And I think we will need to put it into practice. I think in particular, you know, his reference that it's unfinished business. And I'm very glad, Declan, that the bulk of your oration, your marvellous oration, was focused on Irish unity, on the need that we still have unbusiness finished. That 14 field that I referred to this morning in Castlelonkin Cemetery is still aloof. But as you say, we're facing the most difficult part now, I think, of the final phase, if you like, of Irish unity. I'm glad you stressed that you emphasised that. It will be difficult, and I suppose we have to work out ways of how that's going to be achieved. But as you said in your illuminating address, the Unionists should have nothing to fear. They should be prepared, and they will have to, I think, eventually share this little island of ours with the rest of us. That's terribly important that they will do that. Now, the Catholic asked me to be brief, so I'll be as brief as possible, because you have been waiting very patiently. And I'm glad to see so many people here today, and as Declan said, so many young people. That's a great encouragement for the future. And we in the Commemoration Committee, I think, are very happy to see that, because we continue and try to do our best year after year to remember these patriots, these men and women who sacrificed so much down through the generations in the cause of Irish unity. And I'm very glad as well to see some of my colleagues on the National Tambari Commemoration Committee here today, because we had a marvellous occasion in Fitzgerald Park yesterday in Cork City, where a bust was unveiled in memory of Tambari, and that will be there for many years to come. And I think our two committees, and I'm in the fortunate position of being a member of both, I don't know how that has worked out, but I happen to be a member of both committees, that the board of us worked very well in making that project of yesterday a success. And we will, again, in conclusion, I would like to thank Declan Carney for that marvellous address, and that we will bear it in mind, and we must all work together to try and achieve Irish unity, because, as Patrick Pearse said at the graveside of O'Donovan Rossa in Glasnevin Cemetery, Dublin in 1915, Ireland unfree shall never be at peace.
Thank you, Sean. Now I ask you for your approval of that vote of thanks with a rousing round of applause. Now I call on Kathleen Russell to sing the Boys of Kilmichael.
I'd also like to dedicate this now to our good friends Sean and Michael Joe, who unfortunately aren't with us today. And I think that truly they can also be called Boys of Kilmichael. And please, give me a dig out, the voice isn't too good today. While we honour in song and in story the memory of Pierce and MacBride, whose names are illumined in glory with martyrs who long since have died, forget not the boys of Kilmichael, those brave men so gallant and true, and the Irish Republican Army who conquer the red, white and blue. 'Twas the 28th day of November, the Tans left the town of Macroom. They were seated in 2 Crossley tenders, which led them right into their doom. They were out on the road to Kilmichael, and never expected to stall, when they met with the boys of the column, who made a clean sweep of them all. The sun in the west it was sinking, 'twas the eve of a cold winter's day, when the Tans we were eagerly waiting sailed into the spot where we lay, and over the hills went the echo, the peal of the rifle and gun, and the flames from their lorries gave tidings that the boys of the column had won. The lorries were ours before twilight, and high over Dunmanway town our banners in triumph were waving, to show that the Tans had gone down. We gathered our rifles and bayonets, and soon left the glen so obscure, and we never drew rein till we halted at the faraway camp of Granure. So I give you the boys of Kilmichael, those brave men so gallant and true, who fought 'neath the green flag of Erin and conquer the red, white and blue.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. There are a few others that I wish to thank before concluding. I say thanks to Bill Crowley for his wonderful amplification. Thanks to the McSweeney brothers for giving us the car parking facilities over at their gravel pit. Thanks to the Gardaí for control. And thanks to Monsignor O'Callaghan and Canon O'Dalik for their presence. We are delighted and always very pleased to have those with us. I thank the pipers for their excellent music. I want to thank the O'Callaghan family for their hospitality over at Castletown this morning. And I thank the committee who erected the bust of Tom Barry at Fitzgerald Park yesterday and congratulate them on their achievement. And I thank you, last of all, I thank you, our supporters and those who are interested in the cause. Thank you for your continued presence here, year in, year out. And now, to bring proceedings to a conclusion, I will ask the pipers to play our Ran na Bhíon. Good Golea. Another reminder. Carter, there are still some dinner tickets available if you're interested in going to Inchigila to our dinner and Clonona Kjol.